I sound awful. I'm getting over a cold. So here I'm just going to start finding a color that matches the reference picture here. Now this is all going to be covered, and the reason I'm still coloring it is because if there's any gaps, like you can see a line in the motif there, it's going to be concealed and there's not just going to be a white gap. So I'm using this motif because I want it to look like textured and layered ruffles and also look a bit more natural because, as you can see from the reference photo, it is a very natural kind of look. Now I'm mirroring all of these just so that there's symmetry and so that it looks cleaner. It looks more professional as Touch of Magic can be. So the back is always the worst and hardest part because the back is A angled and B that's where the seam is, so it'll cut off any motifs. So if you want a motif to be dead center in the back, try and make it so that the center of the motif is in the middle so that when you mirror it, it'll be a complete image, especially if the motif is symmetrical. So yeah, I'm just kind of going for a nice natural ruffle look. It looks better than just the flat circles that you sometimes see. So this makes it just that little bit better. It just elevates it. The goal with motifs is not just what they are, but also what they can be if you manipulate them right. Like you can cut circles out of them, you can angle them in certain ways, all of that. So I'm just adding the next layer and darkening it a little bit just so we get that little bit of dimension, trying to find a color that matches the reference photo. And also one that looks good with the dress overall, because what might look good in the drawing might not entirely look good on screen and in the game. So just repeating the process from below. I'm going to take a break from narrating and let you enjoy the process. So now I'm done with the ruffles and just kind of giving it a once over before I begin the next step. I decide that it looks good despite all the little gaps. I feel like it adds a little bit of character to it. It adds a little bit more of a natural look as well. So I'm adding the flowers here to pin up certain sections of the dress. Now I'm not mirroring here just because the mirror can sometimes be a little off. It's not that bad for like the big ruffles as you see here, but with smaller objects it's sometimes safer to just do it on your own, especially when they aren't angled a specific way and don't really need that sort of symmetry. I accidentally clicked the wrong motif, which is perfectly fine, quick fix. One advantage the PlayStation has over the computer, as you see here, is turning the character. I have to like click and drag, click and drag, click and drag. So if you're on PlayStation, at least you have that little solace. So here I do use the mirror just to kind of wrap that bit up, and then again giving it a once over, making sure I'm happy with everything so far before I move on to the next part. So I'm choosing a motif to essentially cover the bodice of all of this, and again I'm using a different shade because in the reference it's different than all of the other colors. So I just want to pick a nice shade that will A, go well, and B, match the reference photo well. And I'm just sizing it, getting it to a size that works well, and then I'm adding more motifs just to continue covering the bodice, specifically in the back. It's kind of hard to angle around my window. This was poor placement on my part. So one tip, because you see this a lot with dresses, is just make it smaller and rotate it, because sometimes it doesn't quite align. And then just mirror it, and then you get this nice line. So the next part is doing the V part of the bodice, the part that dips down. And I'm running along the seam here of the dress. So again, just angling it, sizing it, making sure that it's right, and also trying to cover up that error there with the alignment, because that happens a lot. Zooming in, making sure I get everything correct, mirroring it, and then I'm resizing and moving it around just to make sure that it aligns with everything and make sure that it reaches a nice point, and just making sure that it's not too crisscrossing angles. So there's a little gap here. I'm going to go in and cover that to the best of my ability, trying different motifs, seeing what fits it the best, and the triangle seems to fit it the best. So lucky me, got it on the first try. Feel free to experiment with everything that goes on here. So here I'm just adding a little bit of detailing to the bodice, making sure it's not just this block of color. And I'm basically making a lace hemline along the top so that it adds a little bit of intrigue and also ties a bit of the skirt, like the petals, into the top part of the bodice, making sure it looks all like one big piece. And again, mirroring it to make sure it's nice and symmetrical. Going over to the back here, I am going to do the same thing on the back, try and continue that line, starting from kind of the armpit area. And again, I'm going to mirror it, making sure that it continues, so mirroring now. And then I'm also almost going to make like a lace zipper here to make it look nice, also cover that seam line and fill in that little bit of extra space. And I believe we are done here. Giving it a once over to make sure it all looks good. There's that little bit there, but it's all good. I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure to subscribe and keep us updated.